On the 30th of January 2024, I posted a video that did two things. It detailed why so many New Year's resolutions fail, and it outlined my New Year's resolution for the next year, which I then failed. This is especially interesting because I have a PhD in health habits. I've studied behaviour for years, but I still couldn't make a new behaviour stick. There was a good reason for this, which we'll get to. Now, a few years later, I have more experience, and a new study has shifted the thinking on just how much of your daily life runs on autopilot. So as New Year's resolution season approaches, here is the new science of habits and behaviour change. Why some habits form easily, why others never take hold, and what we can tweak to finally make change stick. I promise these puppets will make perfect sense in a few minutes. Thanks to Samsung for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. More on my partnership with them and the Galaxy Watch 8 later in the video. For a long time, habit and intention were thought of as separate systems. One system was impulsive and irrational, where your behaviours kind of happened automatically. And the other system was thoughtful and measured, where you act with intention and in line with your goals. Either you were running on autopilot or you were doing something on purpose. And in these situations where you didn't really want to do something that you knew you probably should, like going to bed or going to the gym, it was thought of as a tug of war between these two systems, where they would pull you in different directions. But this is exciting. New evidence suggests that this is actually not the case.
Most of what we do isn't habit or intention, rather it's both.
This is Amanda Rebar.
I'm an associate professor that studies public health, specifically motivation, so why we do what we do and don't do what we should do.
Amanda is the lead author of this new study and also my habits mentor, who I swear had nothing to do with my failed running resolution. And you were one of my PhD advisors.
Oh, should I say that? Okay. But
no, you don't have to say that.
Okay.
Previous research indicated that about 43% of our behaviour ran on autopilot, and that was pretty generally accepted in the field. It still feels kind of wild because it seems like we're making conscious choices most of the time, but you're kind of not. But as I've mentioned before, these behaviours aren't just obvious good or bad things. They can be actions like squeezing a tube of toothpaste, stirring our coffee, or tying our shoelaces. And we've just learned that even more of our behaviour is on autopilot than we previously thought. This new study tracked 105 people in real time, pinging their phones 6 times a day for a week to find out what they were doing and whether that was intentional or on autopilot. And the results?
Most of our daily behavior is habitual. And I mean, the decision to do a behavior, at least 2/3 of those behavioral choices are out of habit. So it was like 67%.
And on top of this, on top of at least 2/3 of our behaviour coming from habit, there was an even more surprising finding for the field.
But also most of our behaviors were intentional or out of goals that we had set. So when you ask someone, what are you doing? And was the decision to do that behavior an automatic, like was it automatic without much thought? They'd say, yeah, it was. But also, did you do it out of intention? Did you have a plan or a goal? And they'd say yes to that too. So most of what we do isn't habit or intention, rather it's both.
Now, because I've been thinking about this for a long time, when I used to think about intention and habit, I used to imagine a puppet that would kind of get pulled between these two imaginary forces that shape our behavior. If I built a puppet for this video, what should it look like?
I would build 2 puppets, one with a horse and one with a rider, because the idea is the horse is your habit, pushing you in one way, and the rider is your intention, that honestly, most of the time, the horse and the rider are going in the same spot. That's what our research shows.
Okay, so say you want to go to work, that's your intention, but then you don't really think about the route you take to get there. That's your habit taking you on autopilot. This is how intention and habit actually work together. This study changes the habits narrative. Many of your automatic behaviours are actually in line with your goals. Now, once you actually realise that most of your day is being quietly steered by the momentum of your habits and your intentions, the next question feels kind of obvious. So how do you use this to actually help make your resolution stick? As someone who has studied just this for the past 20 years, Amanda has some great recommendations, and we will get to those and my own in just a sec. But first, I kind of wanted to use her experience for some self-validation. If you had to rate my expertise in habit science from 1 to 10, where 1 is beginner and 10 is an expert, how many stars would you give me?
I would give you 10 stars with the caveat.
What?
Yeah.
No.
But listen. I think you do a brilliant job of integrating the scientific evidence base with content that people want to and are willing to listen to. And I think that's a skill that we could learn from.
Okay, so as a 10-star habit researcher, we'll see if you're willing to listen. First, if you want a resolution to become a habit, the habit has to be a behaviour, not an outcome. So your brain can turn actions into habits, but not lofty goals. It's kind of hard. So instead of lose weight, which is actually one of the most common resolutions, think of a behaviour that can help you get there, like maybe walking for 30 minutes a day, or substituting your usual breakfast for one with lower calories. Now for me, personally, I do like using technology in a healthy way to help me form habits. My perspective is that it can be helpful because it helps you focus on a behaviour. My smartwatch, for example, can take a vague goal like improve sleep and turn that into concrete behaviours that I can actually repeat, like nudging me to have a consistent bedtime or a regular wind down routine. Second, look what's happening around your behaviour. Pay attention to the cues and rewards. So ask yourself, what tends to trigger this behaviour? And then what need is this behaviour meeting? Your brain links cues and behaviours and rewards, so they are the entire cycle of habit formation. Third, don't forget about context.
Not everyone is triggered with their habits by the same types of cues.
Your actions could be triggered by a point in your routine, a time of day, a room, your feelings, or even a person.
Everyone has some habit that when they're back around their parents, they act a certain way that maybe they don't around everybody else.
This is what researchers describe as context. It's a vibe that influences your behaviour. And to jump back to my personal experience, when I was doing the digital nomad thing for a year during the pandemic, it was fascinating to see how my steps and physical activity would change depending on where I was living at the time. If I could easily go for a walk, if that was nice, if I could walk to a cafe, if I was car dependent. So in that case, and in general, I think that tech can help you see how context, because context is a little bit vague, can help shape those patterns of your daily life. And finally, there's the ick factor.
This visceral, oh, I don't want to do it, but I promised myself I would, I've got to make sure.
So if you're having to talk yourself into doing this new behavior that you want to do every day, it's probably not going to stick. Sometimes overcoming the ick factor can be reframing bedtime from a chore to self-care. But mostly it involves just doing what you enjoy. Swapping evening doom scrolling for meditation won't work if you don't like meditating. But if you love reading, for example, that has a better chance of sticking.
It's taken me 20 years of research, but I figured out people will just do what they enjoy doing. So rather than try to overcome that, try to make that behavior more enjoyable. Make it something that you like doing.
Now, remember my running resolution from a couple of years ago? This simple wisdom helps explain why that failed. I've set a resolution for years to run and to be a runner, and I've done this because my friends are runners, are always out running, and I kind of feel like I'm missing out on something. But the reality is I don't like running. I kind of hate it. And it's never been enjoyable for me, so I've never done it. And there's other types of exercise, they're lower impact, whatever. I do enjoy those, and they're already part of my routine, so I'm just going to do that. So yes, your behaviors are shaped by science and cues and context, but also by the simple fact that you are a human being that has preferences and moods and taste. And your life already runs on dozens of tiny automatic loops that you barely notice. Maybe you open the pantry when you're not hungry, or you instinctively check the weather the moment you wake up. We're walking collections of teeny tiny routines. And that's actually great news because you don't have to become a different person to form a new habit. You can think about how you can integrate or tuck the new behavior into the routines that you already have in a way that makes it a little easier and a little more enjoyable. And eventually your brain will probably turn that little thing that you're trying to change into something that you just do. Thank you again to Samsung for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. If you too are interested in using tech in a healthy way to support your goals, to try to form new habits or maintain habits that you already have, you can check out the lineup of devices that I use, the Galaxy Watch 8 and the Galaxy Ring, with the links in the description. Bye.